So the idea of choice architecture is that every environment where we're making a choice is actually shaping our decisions to some extent. So the canonical example is the cafeteria. We've all been in a cafeteria, so this will be a familiar context. When you walk into a cafeteria and you pick up a tray and you go to the front of the line, some food is presented to you first. And that first thing you encounter is much more likely to end up on your tray and therefore in your stomach than the very last thing you reach at the end of the cafeteria line. Because by then your tray is full. Even if it looks absolutely delightful, you have to go put something else back in order to put this. And who does that, right? So what this means is that whoever designed the cafeteria and decided what came first and what came last, whether they realized it or not, they were a choice architect. They were shaping the decisions you made about what to eat by the layout decisions they made. Now, an important thing to note about choice architecture, and in this example in particular, is there's actually no such thing as neutral choice architecture. So even if the person designing the cafeteria said, I don't want this responsibility, I don't want to be responsible for what you choose, they have no option. Something has to come first and something has to come last. And since there is no neutral choice, I would argue, and many have argued before me, why not be a wise choice architect and try to help guide people to make choices that would be in their own long-term best interest? So in the case of the cafeteria, a very obvious way to lay it out might be to try to promote healthier options. In the case of investments, you might want to try to promote options that you know will lead to retirement security. So that's the key concept of choice architecture. This is a picture of a urinal in the men's airport restroom in Amsterdam, I believe, if I'm getting that right. And in this particular airport, your restroom, they had a problem with spillage. So a lot of people are getting off of long-haul flights. They're tired. Maybe aim is not their top priority. And so it's kind of a mess. So, okay, you're in charge of the airport. What do you do? How do you fix this problem? You have a number of options, right? You can just hire more janitors, do more shifts, but that's expensive. Another option you have, right, is to post signs, ask people to aim more effectively. I would argue that might make the problem worse because now you're staring at the sign instead of what you should be focused on. But again, this is not my area of expertise, I'll admit. You could imagine hiring like hall monitors and fining people for poor aim, but that's creepy. Also not cheap. So what some wise choice architects did, who understood the psychology of this decision, is what they did is they said, let's etch a little fly into the urinal. Let's give people something to aim at. And in a carefully designed study, this actually reduced spillage 40% year over year. All right, so that's my silly example. Let's talk about a more serious example of good choice architecture. This is a main drag in Chicago, Lakeshore Drive, and they have big problems with people taking this particular curve too fast, and it causes accidents which lead to snarled traffic, not to mention injuries. So trying to figure out how to get people to go slow as they approach this dangerous curve is a major priority. So some wise choice architects who understood psychology said, I have an idea. We can make this better. And what they did is they etched lines into the road that get closer and closer together as you approach the curve. And as a result of that, it gives you the illusion when you're driving that as you're approaching that curve, you're speeding up because those lines are coming faster and faster. And so it leads to the automatic reaction to put your foot on the brake to slow down. Another cool example of good choice architecture. All right, now that you guys recognize good choice architecture, you should also be able to recognize bad choice architecture. So choice architecture really matters. I pulled a couple of examples of how important this is from the research literature just to give you a sense. One area where it matters that's a little disturbing is on elections. So in the US, we have one of these coming up. And ballot order actually makes a huge difference at the polls. So ballot order leads to a 1 to 3 percentage point boost if you're the very first person listed. This is a reason we don't allow incumbents to decide on ballot ordering. The effect is bigger in primaries, maybe where people don't care as much or know as much about the election than in generals, to give you a little bit of a sigh of relief. But still, on something as important as who we elect into public office, choice architecture matters tremendously. Another area that might be near and dear to your hearts is how many funds we offer to people when they're signing up for a retirement savings plan in the US, right, a 401k. The more funds offered, the fewer people actually select a fund and make retirement savings decisions. And this is related to the idea of choice overload, that when we have too many menu options, we become overwhelmed and opt out of making a choice entirely.